the connection is your connection is fine,
I,
is doing
yeah,
fine?
I think it's gonna
Uh,
hold. I think it's gonna hold for the duration of the stream at least.
alright.
And if it doesn't hold, then I guess I'm wrong. Oh, there is one thing I want to show on stream before we start. The There's one thing I want to show on stream before we start the reading, which is uh my 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 drawing of the Grickle Grass. Hold on a second.
Like I already knew it was nah. I already knew it was yet to be polished when I looked at it.
No, I'm not.
Sí,
I
pero en
mean,
un rato.
the drawing is the
Uh,
drawing.
bueno, allá adentro.
There it is.
What?
I didn't improve it. I just kept the drawing as is.
Uh,
You know, just just drawing my Grickle waifu. Yeah. One second. Okay. All right. All right. I'm going to share my screen now. All right. You ready?
yeah. What
Okay.
is up?
Now.
We're on the fucking now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Y-
Yeah.
Yeah, it is now the fucking after show. Fucking um. Yeah, it is the after show. Um, new Grickle. New Grickle short. New Grickle. Dramatic reading.
Dramatic reading. Very
Yeah.
dramatic. Like extremely dramatic project. Extremely dramatic.
I completely forgot you. You're. I completely forgot. You're not exactly that.
Yeah, the book doesn't really follow a story exactly. It's more like comics. And the overall picture is, well, the real story is the story of how the author made this book. That's the real story. Isn't that right, Project?
Yeah.
All right. This one is called Misery and His Company. And this is a different, like, it doesn't have any of the characters that we already know. So it just shows this old guy in the chair. And this is the room where we keep my grandpa. Oh. And this is the room where we keep my grandpa. Hello, Grandpa. How are you and your old bones doing? I have a visitor for you to meet, Grandpa. Sam, get in here. Okay? This is my friend Sam, Grandpa. So I guess he's not nice to Sam. Hi. And then they just look at him. They look at each other. Sam and I were playing crack police outside. And I'm the policeman. And Sam's the crack guy. It's totally fun. Do you
It,
uh do you want to be the crack police?
no, no, I'm doing no, I'm doing fine with all of you, with you doing all the work.
All right then. Hey you, are you carrying any crack? No. Don't lie. Don't lie. And then I saw you dealing, and then I start fighting. Don't resist the right. Jesus. The book. I this is a surprising, very dark turn this comic took. You only make it harder on yourself. Oh no, what's in its pocket? Crack. He's like, hey, I got him. You see, Grandpa, it's just some pebble from the garden. We just pretend it's crack. Billy, I'm going to die very soon. And when I do, my ghost will permanently lie beneath your bed at night. He starts crying. He's like, wah. And then smiles.
Wow, that was fucking fast. You want to do another one? Because I expected this to be like, fa- to be like 10, 20 minutes. You said this
No,
would be like 10.
no, Project, we have to stick to the bill, okay?
All right, only one, only this.
Yeah, only this one.
So that was fucking depressing.
that
I'm only
that
like
was
5.
that
All
was
right, do you want to
honestly
talk
like
about?
surreal.
Do you
That
want to talk
was
about any? Do you want to talk about any? Do you want? Do you want me to talk about what I was doing on Reddit? So I have like this. So I had like
okay.
So I had like this question just stuck in my head for like the past half a decade or so. You know, I'm like
Mhm.
a very into cartoons and animation, and
Yeah.
I, and you know, I've just been fascinated with with theatrical shorts, and I was thinking, when in like the 40s and 50s and like the 40s and 50s, you know, in the Looney Tunes, were they on fucking were they played on their own, or were they played before or were they played the before a movie? I still don't have anything too concrete, but a guy I do have a guy that would like, uh, we're still talking. Don't end the stream. Don't end the fucking stream.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So I had this fucking question that was like, uh, so I'm asking, were theatrical cartoons released shown on their own, or were they shown before a movie, before a feature film? Like, this has been haunting me for like half a decade, because anyone who would be able to answer this shit would have to be at least your dad's age. Your dad is like 71 years old. He was like born in like 1950.
Hmm.
Uh, like minimum your dad's
Can you
age.
repeat the question?
Like, yeah, would work when back in like the 1940s and 50s. Uh, were cartoons that were shown on theaters shown as their as only were only the shorts shown, or were they shown before a movie? Uh,
Well, I know some. I don't. Well,
Espera.
I can't. I can't help you answer the question now, but I know that I
Yeah,
know
but
about
yeah,
I
yeah,
know about
but
one
that's why
thing.
I went to Ask Reddit. Went out at like it was like 7 a.m. I went
Hmm.
to ask. I couldn't get like a lot of sleep, so I went to Ask Reddit and I said, people born before 1960 were theatrical cartoons like Looney Tunes shown as their own piece, or were they shown before a feature film? And I got three, and so far I got like three answers that were like they were shown before a movie
Hmm.
just like newsreels.
Okay.
Uh, but f- oh fuck, it was like a Mickey Goes to Vietnam sort of deal.
Hmm.
Um, so I know when this was like like the 1970s.
About Mickey Mouse? What are you talking about?
I'm talking about most of the answers are from like the 1970s.
Hmm. Well, you know what a Nickelodeon is?
Yeah, I know what a yeah, I know what a Nickelodeon is. It's a fucking theater when where they were like I were like for like point I know if it's like $5 or $25. $25 fucking no, or it's like um or it's like fucking uh
Well, I heard it costs
five
a
cent
nickel.
5 cents 5 cents total $0.05. That's what it costs to watch shit. But I but I, but that shit I think went out of fashion like the 1920s.
Well, that would be one way that cartoons were propagated back then, isn't it?
Yeah, but that was like in the fucking silent era, like Felix the Cat shit, like Gertie the Dinosaur type of shit, like 1910s.
Are you ready to end the stream when Beans ends? When Beans joins?
No, I'm about to. We're better. No, we better just end the stream right now
Right now?
because
Well,
what?
because I'm gonna disconnect.
Because I'm gonna head out because I'm fucking busy. I'm
Okay.
busy. Sorry, man. Sorry, man.
Okay. You don't need
And
to apologize.
also sorry to bring back Fred and Funny Monkey because they couldn't and Beans because or Meatloaf because they couldn't because they weren't because they didn't because they were not like uh because this was like short as fuck.
How? Well, I don't want to take back what I said. Can I just stay here, stay behind, and
Yeah,
then?
you can stay here. Yeah, you can stay here.
All right. I'll wait for Beans to come back, and I'll end the stream.
All right.
If you're ready tomorrow, we'll pick up where we left off tomorrow. I'll see you later.
All
Get
right.
back to so you can get back to what you were doing.
All
Bye,
right.
Project. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Good. Now it's just me and the Grickle Nurse. I'm gonna go through my Grickle Nurse meme. Okay. Okay, here we have Grickle Nurse. Now, this is the Grickle Nurse in the last comic. Now, these are the things that I chose. Very clean. This is a reference to Vic and Hope Let's Plays. If you guys watch that, if anybody watches that, Vic and Hope. It's like a Let's Play channel. It's really cool. Quirky smile. See, Grickle Nurse has a very quirky smile. I feel like if any GF that's a real GF has a quirky smile. You know what I mean? Okay, next we have cute nose. You know, any GF that's a GF has a cute nose, if you know what I mean. It doesn't matter if it's too small or too big, you know. It's in the end, it's a cute nose. Cool hands. Now you see this, that the way the hands are clasping the board, you know, they're very cool, very calm, very collected. That's what I put, cool hands. This is the one thing I want to take back. It says, is everything all right? But I feel like it's in quotation marks, as if that's something she would say. But something that's more accurate, and that probably also fits this GF meme better, is when she says, the doctor will see you now. I feel like I feel like I should have put, the doctor will see you now in quotation marks. Here I put humble. You know, I feel like if you're gonna survive in the medical field, you have to be humble. That's what I feel. So, is a nurse. That is accurate. She is a nurse. Has a clipboard. Has a clipboard. Tall and slender. That's what I put. Tall and slender. She is tall and slender. You know, ain't nothing to it. You know, not the prettiest girl in the room. Now, it's important to realize that, you know, there's this idea, and I suppose it's an idea. It's more a feeling, something that's attributed to relationships, as if you're supposed to have the perfect GF. Well, really, a GF is better than no GF. You get what I'm trying to say? You know, she's not the prettiest girl in the room, but she loves you. That's like the real description. Will take care of you. She's a nurse. She knows how to apply first aid. She knows how to do CPR. She knows all these things that nurses know, and she can apply it in the house. Anything happens, she will take care of you. And she knows how to make good chicken soup. It doesn't say that in the book, but that's what I'm guessing. Medicare and health benefits if wedded. Now, I don't know if this is a thing outside of America, but if you like marry somebody who works in the hospital industry, hospital field, you will receive family benefits. I think that's how it works. So if you marry a nurse, I think you get some health benefits. I'm not entirely sure, but I don't know. I put it there, it makes sense. That's my meme, pretty much. So I guess I'm just gonna wait until Beans joins BC, and then I'm gonna end the stream. He's eating pizza at the moment. Don't really know what to do right now. Oh, here. I am going to play a podcast with the author. I'm gonna play a podcast with Graham Annabelle on stream until Beans gets back, and that's gonna be it. I'll see. I will return to the chat. I will be returning to chatting when Beans gets back, and we can sign off. But for now, enjoy Graham Annabelle on the Gutter Talk podcast.
It sounds like I'm doing the interview from my bathroom. You're welcome for the image. But this is a lesson that sometimes needs to get driven home, which is to always test your equipment prior to starting a project. Now, sure, perhaps it's much easier to tell when your pencil is working just fine, but when it comes to using the more technical side of your art, there is no worse feeling than thinking it's all great, and it's not. Still, I'm going to release this episode, my personal warts and all. Really, there wouldn't be much I could do anyway besides re-record the interview, and well, that's just not realistic. Plus, it's a fantastic talk with Graham, and I don't want to not get it out to you all. But I have a deep respect for all you artists that pour a good amount of time and energy into something, only to find out you have to do it all again. That said, I've decided to heed the wise words of Graham's 4-year-old when he said, "You get what you get, and you don't make a fuss." Now, I'm proud of the work I put into these podcasts, mistakes included, because every step of the way is a learning process. It's all part of my 10,000 hours. So, here is somewhere around hour 1,000. This is Graham Annabelle.
Perfect. So, I want to start with what you're currently working
Currently, I am in the middle of really getting into the sloth book for first second.
on. Peter and Ernesto.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to get into this because, I've done a lot of comic work in my career, but the last four years, my day job is at like a animation studio, and I've been a storyboard artist there since the days of Coraline and Paranorman, and I was unfortunate enough to get into the position of co-directing on the Box Trolls, and it really was an amazing experience, and I can certainly say that now that it's over.
Oh, is that right?
But it was far and away the most stressful and absorbing thing I've ever committed to doing, and one of the casualties of that was I was just not able to do the kind of comic work I liked to do on the side like I'd done previously. So I'm really excited to get this chance to sort of officially do like a formal book with First Second. And I've just finished sort of tweaking the outline for it and hitting the point where I really now need to truly begin drafting out the pages and the layouts. So I'm really excited for that. Scared, but excited.
Sure. Now, how did First Second seems like a perfect fit for this? Like, how did you get hooked up with them?
Sort of, kind of. I feel like it's been slowly happening now for a while, whether either side was conscious of it or not. Um, I work with Vera Brosgol at Leica, and she's had experience on Anya's Ghost with First Second. There's a number of other folks that have all worked with First Second that said that would be a great place for me, and I should do stuff. And I think honestly a little bit maybe through Chris Duffy. I've been doing SpongeBob comics here and there for years now with Chris Duffy, and he knows everybody at First Second, of course. And so actually, yes, and it was Chris who was the editor on the Fables and the Fairy Tales compilations that they've done, and I did some pieces for those. And I think in particular, and this is my version of the story, and they may have a different version, but from where I stood, it was the Goldilocks and the Three Bears story that I did for the Fables one, or is that the Fairy Tales one? I'm terrible in classification of which is what, but it was that wordless story that I did that I think convinced Callista and a bunch of folks at First Second that, yeah, we should do a book together. And Callista, right after that story had come out and the book, had sort of made it very clear to me that if I was wanting to pitch anything, they were certainly wanting to hear it. And so I was still in the midst of Box Trolls madness. And so I sort of tucked that away and put it on a shelf and didn't want to forget about it. And as my schedule became flexible again and things started to open up, I just sat down and started to work out, like, what would I do, for initially they proposed sort of like an early readers kind of graphic novel if I was interested in that. And I really liked that idea because, again, wordless thing, the minimal amount of dialogue was what was appealing to me and to them in terms of trying to figure out a book that I can construct with, very little language that might be great for like first time readers and stuff. So that's where it all began. Where it ends up, who knows? But first time readers jump into that journey full time. That's where it all began. Where it ends up,
Callista,
great
just
for
to
first
yes,
time readers
she
jump into that
is
journey
awesome.
full time. That's where it all began. Where it ends up,
Callista
great
here,
for
just to
first time readers
she
jump into
is
that
just
journey
awesome.
full time. That's where it all began. Where it ends up,
Callista here. She's
yeah,
really cool, really smart.
She seems really smart. Yeah, that's exactly the impression I got. Like, wow, she's
really
very
cool,
smart.
really smart.
This is going to be good.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Good
Well,
hit.
I want to actually, you brought up the whole wordless aspect of things. Is that something you enjoy more than writing out a script or writing all the words, I guess?
Totally. Yeah, at least so far, that's always where I've been in terms of constructing and figuring out stories. Seems to always start from a visual point first and foremost. And it's definitely the kind of comics that I personally enjoy reading. It's no knock against well-written, wordy comic books, but I just know when I flip open a comic book, if there's a certain percentage of dialogue on the page, it's a lot harder for me to really want to commit to reading it. I don't know why. I don't even know why. I guess it's just I take so much pleasure in looking at drawings and solving and seeing problems solved visually. I just prefer that, and I try to adhere to that in my work. That's just where I want to be in
It
terms of
seems
the
like
reading.
it seems like more of a challenge to tell the story without words.
It could be. I think it's just a different perspective because I mean, I have total respect for people that are so good with words because I think I struggle when I try to write a lot of dialogue. I definitely do. I mean, again, working on the Box Trolls, we worked with a lot of different writers through different phases of it, and I was always kind of wowed that, man, they can construct it just using words. Because I mean, I would hop in there and try to tweak a script page and do this or that, and I would just start to get bogged down, and next thing you knew, I'm trying to like doodle it out to figure out how I'd even paste the dialogue. I just think that way first, but I don't know if it's any better because I'm just as impressed with people that are fantastic with words.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, let's then kind of go back to your beginnings. I want to know, you're originally from Canada, Ontario?
Yeah, I grew up in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. As I describe in America, I say it's the northern tip of Michigan, but the Canadian side. It's right where all the Great Lakes meet. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Did you grow up around a lot of cartoons or comics?
Yeah, I was pretty obsessed with it early on. A huge Spider-Man fan. I remember watching Ralph Bakshi's Spider-Man on TV. I was obsessed with that forever.
Is that the live action one?
No, this was the late 60s cartoon, animated one. It had like, it was the ultimate in reused animation. It would just, every show had maybe just a couple of seconds of new animation and everything else was just reused pieces from before. But man, I was so into that, and of course read Marvel Comics, and Peanuts, Charles Schulz. I had as many of those trade paperbacks that I could get, on my hands on. I just had a huge stack of the Peanuts things, and I would just reread them over and over and over. So yeah, I was always pretty heavily into comics, And I guess specifically, yeah, probably Peanuts. Like as a kid, anyway, I sort of imagined myself becoming a comic strip guy, making comic strips.
What was it about? What was it about them that drew you to them? So
I think the simplicity of Schultz's drawings for sure, and there's just so much emotion in those things. I mean,
yeah,
again, it's something that I feel like I at least strive to do and get anywhere near that level of just, with so little he says so much. That's what always impressed me about the Peanuts characters. And the Peanuts characters they just deal with heavy stuff all the time. And I don't know, as a kid, I always gravitated to that more. It's just more interesting to me.
yeah, yeah. Do you have a lot of family or friends that were also into comics?
Not overly. I mean, certainly friends as I grew older, there was a certain faction of us that were all collecting comics and putting them in plastic bags and boxes and,
Right.
assessing the value in the comics buyer's guide every week. I still remember like the absolute thrill of like springtime and hitting garage sales, and like we would all as a group of us go to the neighborhood garage sales, all fantasizing about like flipping through a pile of old magazines and finding that Action Comics #1 perfect shape. So yeah, there was
Mistakenly put out there for $1.
yeah, somebody just not knowing. And I still remember like the biggest job, or the biggest success I had in terms of finding any actual hidden treasures was an X-Men annual. I don't know I can't remember which number it was, but it was reasonably high valued, and it was only like 5 cents in a box. And I remember breaking into a cold sweat as I approached the person to pay the 5 cents for the comic, because I'm like, they're gonna know. They're gonna know. But I got away with that one. That was the only real success story at ever garage sale.
I can imagine that. I can imagine that trip home, just the shaking with excitement.
Yeah, like I did it.
Always looking over your shoulder. Are they following you?
Just waiting for it all to come crashing to an end.
Yeah, yeah. So, as you were growing up, what kind of art education did you have? Did you start just on your own, or did you take any classes in school?
Mostly on my own. A lot of trying to copy Spider-Man's costume. I remember drawing like when I was 5 or 6, like spending so much time drawing this one epic drawing of Spider-Man on his spider cycle going across a high wire.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know why or how that happened, but I just remember spending a lot of time on the webbing. But yeah, I'm pretty much, I guess, self-taught. I don't remember. I didn't really have any like specific art classes that were any different than any of my other friends in terms of schooling. But I was just always obsessed with cartoons and animation for the most part.
Okay. And then at that point, you went to Sheridan College.
Yeah, that was a bit of a fluke too. I was approaching graduating from high school, and I was seriously considering going to university for something in biology. I just had gotten pretty interested in science. I'd always been kind of interested in sciences, and biology specifically. I didn't know exactly what, but I remember looking at my textbooks, my science textbooks, and they were just covered in doodles. And I thought, maybe I'm more naturally inclined for the art thing. And I chose Sheridan only because they had this very special classical animation course that was kind of known throughout Ontario. It was known throughout Ontario for. But in my mind, it was like the only thing that it combined in my head. It combined comics and film together equals animation. So I thought, okay, that's perfect. That's exactly, because I was really obsessed with Stanley Kubrick and film and all the rest of it at that time too. I thought, wow, perfect. Film and comics together, animation. And man, I knew nothing about the process walking into that course, but I got picked. I submitted a portfolio and got in, and I started. And I still remember like the first couple of days, like being surrounded by all these other kids who were completely versed in the history of Disney and the Nine Old Men and like all this stuff. I had no clue. They're all carrying around their Illusion of Life books, which is, at that time was sort of the Bible for classical animation. And I just I didn't know anything about any of that stuff. And I at least knew a bit by the end of third year, but
That's good.
yeah, I picked up some of it.
Some of it. Yeah. No, I talked to a lot of artists, and I always asked them if they had a lot of support from their parents going into art, because a lot of them, at least my parents were like, just make sure you get a job, and all that. So did you have a lot of support when you were going into the animation?
I think, yeah, I mean, I had a lot of freedom. My parents never dissuaded me from, a career in the arts. Both my parents were elementary school teachers, and we lived in Northern Ontario. So I think even to this day, I still don't know if they fully grasp what I do exactly. They're happy for me, and they're happy it's all turned out well. But I don't think they never dissuaded me. But and I don't think they ever had any sort of sense of like this could all go horribly wrong. They just knew
Right.
that I was really interested in this. This is what I like to do, so of course they would support me in it. So yeah, they never put up any roadblocks to say no, you shouldn't be an artist because that's gonna end badly.
Right.
But it was partly, I think, due to them just not quite understanding, but they just knew that's what I was happiest doing. So, and they were fantastic that way. My folks were always good about whatever me or my sister were into. They would just support that as best as they could. They never tried to steer it one way or the other. And I really, looking back on it now, I really appreciate the fact that they gave us that freedom to kind of make our own choices.
Yeah, that kind of support is really important.
It is huge, yeah. And again, you don't recognize it till years after, and you realize, wow, I really probably wouldn't have landed here if it hadn't been for that.
Yeah, and that probably makes you open. You mentioned you had your kids. That probably makes you open to the things that they might want to do.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I want to expose them to as many things as I possibly can. I feel like, I loved the fact that I grew up where I grew up in terms of like all the outdoor options and activities. But Sault Ste. Marie, it's just a smaller community. It's pretty far up north, and so culturally now the things I've seen and done, and like living in Toronto for years and out in Portland and the Bay Area, there's a lot more out there that as a kid I certainly wasn't aware of. And for my kids, I want to make sure, yeah, I definitely expose them to as many things as I can, but let them make their choices in terms of what they gravitate to. Let them naturally, hopefully, land where they want to be.
Yeah. So as far as going back to the animation stuff, the college courses, you and I are really only a handful of years apart. So I'm not saying you're old in any way, but
no, you can go ahead.
Well, then I'm old too. No, there's probably some major differences between how it was done then and how it's done now.
Yeah.
Are there any that you struggle with or have a hard time grasping at this point, the newer stuff?
I guess I've been pretty lucky in terms of sort of just evolving with how things have changed.
Yeah.
It's funny, yeah, the folks that are my generation in the animation industry, I mean, it just the conversation will naturally devolve into like, man, the kids these days, they just don't understand how much easier it is now. You can just make movies and like you can color it all yourself, and you don't have to deal with cells or Xerox machines and blah blah blah.
Phone.
Yeah, and that's exactly when all the 20-somethings and 30-somethings start rolling their eyes because you just become that old guy.
Right.
So I try to avoid that. I try to be conscious of when I start falling into that thing. But yeah, I've been, I spent 12 years working at LucasArts in the video game industry. And when I first started that job in like 94, I was animating stuff with a mouse and pixels, just doing walk cycles with Ben Throttle and like just crazy stuff. But it was still very traditional in the sense that it was 2D and we were drawing. And on a lot of the games, we got to actually draw the cutscenes traditionally on paper, flipping and scanning those things in. But of course, at a certain point, like 97, maybe 98, everything became CG 3D, software. And I had to learn on the job how to use 3D software. And I was a little nervous because, I really did get into animation because I just liked drawing a lot. And I suddenly saw that sort of disappearing. But learned on the job, and at that time it was every project had a different software. I mean, some projects were using Maya at Lucas, some were using Lightwave. It was like this big struggle as to who was going to rule the 3D animation world. And so I learned a lot of different ones, and they all had the same sort of fundamentals to them. But I did find that, wow, I still enjoy animation just as much when I'm doing it with 3D models. You get the same satisfaction when you really, nail the timing and the acting works and everything. It still feels just as satisfying. It wasn't quite as natural for me in terms of getting to that end result, because I'd always, again, thought through things visually, and suddenly I'm having a mouse and inputting numbers to try to get the character to pose the way I felt like it needed to. So it was a little different, but yeah, I felt like I segued decently into that world, and then did that for a number of years and got pretty comfortable being a 3D animator. But at doing that, actually still, that spurred me to start doing the comics independently, because I did still feel like, man, I really still need that satisfaction of drawing on paper, and kind of returned, I guess, to my roots, because like I said, as a kid, I'd always imagined I'd be doing comic books or comic strips. And that's when I started, excuse me, doing the Grickle books on the side, and kind of kept that going. And I don't know, I try as best as I can to stay as open to new technologies and new things when they arrive. And like I'm so excited to be in this era of YouTube and Vimeo, and like the ability to completely eliminate any sort of middleman person in terms of who gets to see your film. And the fact that you can color and put everything together yourself. It still takes, animation always takes a ton of time no matter what, but the fact that you can essentially have your own theater online, as long as people know where to go, you can put it up and you can get it seen. That's just incredibly exciting to me. And so I think it's a good thing, yeah, that things have changed the way they have.
Yeah, and it's smart to be open to those changes.
Yeah, I think so. There's no sense fighting it. I mean, if there's a better way, there's a better way. Why would you try to resist that? But it is, the older we get, the harder it is for us to recognize when it's maybe a better way.
Yeah, for sure. Well,
that we know.
Right. I was going to ask if you sometimes, just sort of eschew the newer stuff, just to go back to your roots and say, it's like that warm blanket.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a certain level of comfort you should always try to achieve with whatever you're doing, so you can hopefully do your best work.
Yeah, for sure. Now, you mentioned you were at LucasArts working in the video game era. Have you always, and I also noticed a blog that you refurbished a table hockey game?
Yes.
Which I used to play those as a kid too, so I remember those. Have you always been into games, and was that a direction you thought you might head in as well?
It's kind of weird. No. I mean, the era that I grew up in, I definitely was frequenting the arcade, the local. I remember Top Hat Amusements was the arcade in downtown Sault Ste. Marie, and every weekend, me and my friends would just, scrounge for as many quarters as we could find, jam them in our pockets, and then take our bikes and ride downtown and go to the arcade and try to make those quarters last as long as possible. So I was like super into video games at that point. I had a VIC-20, which wasn't exactly the best gaming machine. And my friends all had Commodore 64s, and I had a Nintendo. And yeah, so I played games right up to about just before I went to, or just maybe that first year in college, because I still remember so vividly that, was it the second, or maybe, I think it was the second Zelda game. I mean, I spent a lot of hours solving that thing.
Yeah.
And I still remember getting to the end, and then all it was like Link and the princess just doing a little dance, a little 8-bit dance, and I was like, man, that was a lot of time for me to just see just this. And that was it. That was the cutoff point. I stopped playing games at that point. I just put them down, and it was at college too, and suddenly I didn't have the same amount of time to focus and just waste on games, I guess. But I kind of dropped out of playing games, worked in film and TV in Toronto, and was actually preparing to get my portfolio together to go out to Vancouver, Canada for more TV work. And a friend of a friend had called up and said that he just got hired at LucasArts, and they were more than willing to hire more Canadians, because I guess they were having a hard time bringing kids from LA, from CalArts and stuff, up to animate at their studio. And so portfolio was ready. I submitted it and suddenly found myself in the Bay Area working in video games. And I was right in the middle of where when I had stopped playing video games was perfectly aligned to basically have no clue about LucasArts and their history of adventure games or any of it. I was just suddenly plunked in the middle of this like legendary like gaming, adventure game studio, helping make these awesome games, but I had no clue of their context historically within it. It's taken me years to realize like what an amazing place, or what an amazing like a bunch of projects I got a chance to have a hand on. So yeah, it's kind of weird. I landed in the video game industry when I was least honestly interested in video games, but it's certainly, yeah, video games have always stayed somewhat, there's a certain level or a certain percentage of my time that always pays attention. My wife is a producer at Double Fine Productions.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, I mean, I'm regularly updated in what's going on in the world of games.
Yeah, for sure. What are some of the I guess similarities as far as storytelling is concerned between video games and cartoon or illustration work?
There's tons. It's always just about how can you concoct that connection to the audience,
So,
and interactivity certainly adds a
in
lot more elements. Video games are, I mean, film obviously is really hard to do. Video games, at least from my experience, even seem more exceptionally difficult in terms of storytelling, because you want to provide control to the user. You want to provide that sense of like a world that just expands beyond what you're seeing, and it's tricky to try to come up with every scenario that's going to happen or not happen in a situation. And it was interesting when I when I worked at LucasArts, and I spent a small stint.
Beans.
I left LucasArts and did a year and a half at Telltale Games when they were first starting out. And as an
Hold on
artist,
a second. 1 second.
good and bad, you learn very quickly in video games that the programmers are
Okay.
that's where the buck.
I stopped at 27 minutes into the podcast. Beans, I think I can hear you now. Can I hear you? Can you speak?
in the fire, fire,
Hey, how are you? How are you feeling, man?
better.
Better? Better than yesterday? Is that a yes?
Yeah.
All right then. I was gonna end the stream when you came into VC, so I'm gonna end the stream now. Anything you want to say to the viewers? Maybe.
Listen to Jesus King by Kanye West.
Okay. Okay. End of stream. Thanks for watching.